And
Yeah, let me see if I can follow it up.
appreciate
So,
that. Yeah, we're live. Yeah, we're live. Let's get our folks into the room. Go to mod. Yesterday we did a little live streaming yesterday just to kind of try to make sense of everything. And just it was just bleak. We went through that 1776 report.
oh, you did. I started reading some of it.
Wow.
Did you see? But you know what? It's clear,
It
right?
is. It is clear.
Clear.
It is crystal clear.
It sounds like I wonder what I would like. I know what it is, but I would love to see the construction, like who participated, like how did it birth? We guess, Stephen Miller and other people we think, but I would just love to have seen that part.
At the bottom of it, they actually listed out of who was
Bunch of
involved with it.
scholars, right? Yeah, I
Yes,
saw some of those.
and then at the bottom, they were real cute about it. They put down these like, oh, also helped created with help and preparation from these people, and a lot of them were just like in one case it was like a college student at the Hillsdale College, which I think is kind of like a weird fundamentalist college, something like that in Michigan or something.
I don't mean to laugh, but
Oh, you can laugh. You can definitely laugh. That it was stunning, and so, some other guys like presidential speechwriters. I mean, just the true barnacles of the neo-fascists.
America's at a very critical stage in its young history. It's going to be really I hope I live long enough to see what happens in time.
Yes, yes. So while we've got some folks trickling into the show here, firstly, I would like to welcome everybody back to. I think we can officially call this a Dwight's Bites, and in fact, let me amend the title of this on the page. And for those who are joining us now, and I want to introduce to the community that may not know you as of yet, a person who I am an enormous fan of, Ken Montgomery.
Thank you.
Oh man, what an honor to have you on. We've got some good folks in the chat here that are saying hello to you. We got Professor Salty, we've got Ross, we've got Icebore. I know Lodane's there, Vicky, Nick as well.
Tell them salute and peace. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, so I'm not dual tasking, tweeting or doing anything, but tell them I said respect and peace.
Absolutely. No, they're plugged into us. So, and as well, it's kind of become a little bit of tradition to have in the background, we've got a live webcam focused on, I think it's from Brooklyn Bridge Park, looking at the financial district in Lower Manhattan, because, we got to keep our eyes on Capitol.
Yes, and the biggest crime, one of the biggest crime scenes that there's hardly ever any arrests on. Yes. I'm certain of that.
It's so crazy. It's so crazy. Anyway, so Ken, I don't want to do you a disservice, and I probably should have asked you this ahead of time, but would you please kind of introduce yourself and your work to our
Absolutely.
Our community here,
I'll be very brief because I'm in the shit, as they say. Yes. I'm a trained attorney, criminal litigator. I spent the beginning of my career as a Brooklyn prosecutor for about 4 years in the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. I only went there because my mentor at the time said that for me to be the defense attorney that I wanted to be, I needed to go somewhere that was rigid and that I had to hone my skills. So I went to Brooklyn, I left. I started my own practice, which initially was all, when you start on your own in this wilderness called capitalism, I was doing everything from summons to murder cases, and exclusively state. And at some point in my career, I then started transitioning to do more federal work. So at this point in time, I do the majority of my work is spent in federal court, defending everything from terrorism to federal death penalty cases across the country and out of Southern District and Eastern District of New York. I'm on both CJA federal panels, both capital panels. I do a substantial amount of, most of my state work now is probably conspiracy, narcotics cases, and mainly homicides. But most of my time is spent federally, from trial work to appellate work. I teach at Fordham Law. I teach at Brooklyn College, African Studies. And then I'm a member of the Brooklyn Combine, which is an organization started by me. And we refer to each other as brothers and comrades. Yes. But it's a community where we started really, we wanted to change the narrative for young people who had some of the challenges that we had when we were coming up. And just really, it was an organization for us to speak truth to power, but actually become practical in creating solutions to change some of the things, systemic things in the community.
Yeah, amazing. And correct me if I'm wrong too. You guys have a community fridge now outside of your office.
We have a community fridge. Listen, if you need food or you had some food challenges, you could come to 198 Rogers between Union and President here in Crown Heights. Is probably 2 blocks off of Eastern Parkway. It's a refrigerator. We try Brooklyn BK Fridge. We went in conjunction with them. They keep it stocked, but we have other people donating. If you have time and you need something, by all means, take advantage of it. So we do that. We have mentoring programs in Brownsville and Red Hook. We work with Beam Center out in Red Hook as well, creating the academic solutions, because honestly, I think that is the source of how to change inequity on any level is a real genuine education that requires critical thinking. So that's why we're in those communities as well.
Yes. So, at a risk of elevating our blood pressure, I think I kind of want to get into some things. Look, the first thing that I think is just prescient for us, and I'm sure is on the mind of everybody in the community that's watching us right now, is the Biden inauguration. You don't have to have watched it to appreciate, I think, just kind of the wide implications that we're going to get from this administration. And I know that you have some strong.
I have a lot of thoughts. A lot of thoughts. America was exposed. A lot of people think of America as a very powerful nation in a very short period of time. We always think of the weaponry and the weapons and the cowboy culture, and that's significant and that's important. Yes. But one of the things I think people underestimate about America is its ability to communicate propaganda, good propaganda and bad propaganda. And it's been in this silo where it really has had no competition regarding the sanctity of its system. Trump comes along and he exposes all those sores that already existed. It frustrates me when people talk as though he is some new phenomenon or he's done something that's egregious. No, he took advantage of something that had always been. And America now, through its propaganda machine, through its media and its information system, it has to change this narrative, but it's stuck because it's stuck with the reality of what this really is, which is you have a significant portion of Americans who are unwilling to share in the idea, the conception of democracy, which is an idea, but they're unwilling to even share in that construction with people. And they're adamant about it. And they're willing to, as they always have, use violence.
Yes.
So what are you going to do now?
Well, I mean, to that point, I think one of the things that I think we have to be critical of the Biden administration, especially in the first 100 days, is twofold. One, let's remember how much the Trump administration was able to accomplish via executive order in the first year of his presidency, 100 days. I mean,
that's all he did.
Rapid shit.
That's all he did.
And it went to illustrate as well that like all you needed to then accomplish that, to make it stick, is just to have your party in control of the other branch of government.
That's all you need.
Which we have.
That's all you need is that, and to continue to stoke that fire.
Exactly.
In which he was a master at that.
Exactly.
So, So you say that though with hesitancy, as if we know history, this may not be the case.
Oh, yes. And so it then begs the second part of it, which is, I think what's more important than seeing what the Biden administration does do is to take a look at what they do not do in the first 100 days. Because anything short of a giant reparations program, just focused on the damage that has been done in the last 4 years, is insufficient.
Absolutely. And I think it's even beyond. If they go that route, they are basically going to fall into the criticisms of the party that we hear, which is they don't have the I'm not going to use the word, but they don't have the toughness to compete with that other party, because we see with that other party is willing. Part of my language, I curse sometimes. They're willing to kill y'all motherfuckers. Like they will.
Yes.
They're willing to kill you. Like they have people who are inciting violence, and they have people in holding seats who are affiliated with those people, at least in theory or ideology.
Yes.
So if I'm the Democrats, and I'm neither Democrat or Republican, but if I'm the Democrats at this moment in history, I'm going hard, as you said. I'm going big. I'm unwinding all of that shit. Yes. But I'm not stopping there. I'm also coming with a full, not a knee-jerk reaction, but a full plan, because America's really good at that. Like, we came up with crack sentencing guidelines out of fear. Like a lot of decision making is out of fear. Yes. But if they can really come with a comprehensive plan that affects the homes of people and them and how they raise their children, education and the student loan debt, then you're going to see what I think will happen culturally is that, they've already had the cultural winning of the cultural war, I guess. I guess that's maybe why we're where we are at this moment in time. But if they are able to do that with meaningful policies, they'll put themselves in control for a very long time. Whether they're willing to do that, I don't know.
Exactly. No one wants to be the politician that takes away the health care from people.
No.
Because the ACA was not that. I mean, it was just, hey, you now just have a way to be beholden to a health insurer independent of your employer.
Yep.
And you have to pay for it yourself.
But look what happened. Look what people, that's what's crazy to me, is that the fear that was stoked off of the Obama administration, was it really genuine? Like, did Obama do anything, or did he move in such a way that was so against the American machine, the imperialistic machine, and how they move? And you had these people ready to change everything, basically because he kept status quo, even on that level.
I'm sorry. You need look no further than the fact that in late 2008 into 2009, the Obama transition team handed over the list of prospective cabinet members to Citigroup to vet. And that's not so you can't even blame the becoming jaded from the office, the weight of the office and the weight of the conformity that it forces you into. It was that way out of the get-go. And maybe that was because of the people around him, but at the end of the day, that campaign selected the people around them.
Yes. I actually was a part of a letter that was sent to the Biden transition team.
No way.
And the reason why we sent the letter was because we looked at their team, and as in regards to criminal justice reform, they didn't have the people that you need there who understood. They had people in these firms, in these, connections in these political places. They didn't have trial attorneys. They didn't have federal defense attorneys. They didn't have anyone from the federal defender's office across the country, who are probably one of the most efficient offices in our legal system. And it showed you that, what's really going on. And we have to hold these people accountable, just like we held this imbecile and his kleptocracy accountable. These guys have to be held accountable as well.
I think if I were, how can I put this? If I were the same kind of itinerant operative that is, the kind of like beltway operative that is surrounding any administration, regardless if it's Democrat or Republican or neoliberal or neo-fascistic, and I see an opportunity to do the same thing that the Trump administration did, which is, how can we bolster the involvement of private corporations in this administration and therefore into American life? And I think what's unique about the Biden administration is going to be, and this is just kind of the tea leaves that I'm reading, is tech companies, tech conglomerates, tech mega corporations are going to be working all the more hard towards the neo-feudal technocratic society that profits, that bolsters, that benefits their shareholders the most.
Absolutely.
And we saw that, and exactly to your point, in the Biden transition team, because they had the lobbyists from Lyft and Amazon and Uber and, am I correct in thinking that?
Listen, and when you think of, because you're making a very, very good point. We're in this digital age now, right? It's still capitalism. And what's driving, what's even driving our interaction, our human interaction, is tech. Like, tech is leading that. Without tech, I don't even think you have Donald Trump as president. You may not have Obama as president without technology to some degree. So how this thing goes, and these and these parties and these corporations that are being ushered in, because they have to be ushered in, right? Because this system is capital dependent. It can't exist. It doesn't work without the huge sums of capital. I saw something today where I think you tweeted it. It had me crying.
I did a bunch today, so it could have been me.
You said Bloomberg spent how much?
Yes.
to win American Samoa? You said $600 million?
650, in fact.
$650 million.
I like that.
For a guy.
How do you like that?
So, they have to bring these people in. What I'm concerned about is, I think humans are struggling to maintain their humanity and their expression. And I think there's a collision between that desire to express yourself and that interaction with technology. Because I feel like once you're interacting with the technology, you're really at bay to the algorithm of that particular technology or product. And that's very scary. And I think what we're seeing is that there's some hidden repressed stuff, even in this society of tech, where people think they're offering critical analysis because they're telling you how they feel. But are we really getting beyond that? And I think this administration is going to be very important, what you just said. There's so many tentacles to what you just said.
Look, I mean, the creepy part about that too is, and we just put out on our podcast, Eat the Rich, we just put out an episode today about Facebook. And one of the points that my colleague Shane made is, I think there's a tendency to think of algorithms and to think of tech as this kind of like, and this is very much by design. I mean, you see this in like the kind of marketing and the presentation that Google is this like cuddly, nice thing, and it's meant to make your life better, instead of the unblinking rictus that it actually is, that is trying to more efficiently siphon us into the meat grinder of capitalism.
Absolutely.
And algorithms contain the bias of everybody that created the keystrokes that created it. And, and especially with that tech tends to be,
pretty
spearheaded.
homogenous group.
Yeah, spearheaded by privileged white people and
kids,
owned by privileged white people. It is going to work to primarily serve the interests of those privileged white people.
I don't, and I have a problem with people from the Black community. Yeah. Because I can't say we're not monolithic by any means. But it's funny taking that to another level today. I look at people and I'm like, all right, get this fool out of here. Get him out the grinder. Who's up next? Who's a person we got to hold accountable next? And I'm looking at all this stuff and I'm seeing, memes of Rosa Parks and Kamala Harris.
You posted that today. I almost fell out of my chair.
So it's like, wait, guys, we can't look at it as if that is something that is beneficial to us. Why would you think that based on history? And because America and white supremacy can diversify itself. And it's always diversified itself very well, because when you think of even integration, what the fuck does integration mean? Like, show me what is it? What is it? What does it mean? What does it look like? In hindsight now, we had all this integration, and in 2020, we have all these diversity meetings, all of a sudden IBM didn't know that, they put out a red, black, and green logo, and all of a sudden, all the issues that they've had as a company in hiring people of color is solved. But as people, we're so alienated that any appearance of participation becomes enough, and people become tribal. And then you start, I guess, moving intellectually in a way that's dishonest, because now you're not even looking at what this thing is. Like, to me, I knew white supremacy was really in a weird place when Obama even got the election. I thought that was one of the most gangster, smooth moves that I've ever witnessed. And I can't tell you how many people were pissed off at me when, and other people when they're challenging that. But just because you participate in a system that is about oppressing people, that's not equality. That's not progress. What is that? So, I don't even know how we got to that point. But
look, this is the thing that was plastered all over the airwaves today, and the the corporate media that was kind of broadcasting this about the inauguration. And the thing that they continued to tout was, this is going to be the most diverse cabinet that we've ever had in America's history. And in my head, I'm like, oh, by the way, you are getting called to run for office, by the way, in the chat right now.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh shit!
But it is the most diverse cabinet in our nation's history, in terms of asset class.
Yes,
because you've got hedge funds, you've got board members of defense contractors, you've got top tier lawyers, you got Goldman Sachs. That is the thing that's so crazy, is that I believe that our corporate media is extremely complicit in proselytizing the idea that marginalized faces in high places is the same thing as systemic change.
Yes. And I think they're more than complicit to me. They're probably one of the most dangerous institutions in American society, and one of the biggest threats to democracy, true democracy, to be honest with you.
Yes.
They've created this structure where you can't beat them, so you join them. And they're so money intensive, and they basically have the ability to force you to make an opinion about shit you don't even care about. Like, damn, I don't even give a fuck about Kanye. Why is this shit on? How did this get to me? So they had that quality. And now even in this moment in history, they've helped create this Trump monster. You know, they did that. You know, they didn't call him to the carpet when he started with lies.
Right.
They made it entertainment.
Yes.
And that's something that America is really good at, is making very serious shit digestible through the most lowest form, which is, you know, this foolish entertainment that, you know, we indulge in every day. So I would like to see more citizens going at these corporations, holding them accountable, yes, boycotting them, putting their business in the street. Who's donating to who? Mm-hmm. You know, the guy who owns the San Francisco Giants, oh, you're getting your $2,800 back from this Bo Bear character or latest spectacle. You know what? Why did you find her a candidate to donate to in the first place? And what about these other, like, literally, let's put all this transparency out and then let's disseminate it. Let certain groups digest it. Let certain groups align with each other. And let's start finding the common enemy and the common systems that need to go away, period. Like, they just need to go away. And I think Americans are afraid of that because they don't know what's on the other side of white supremacy. They don't conceive civilization or practical things being done by people other than, or people yes, other than that ilk, I should say, if that makes sense.
It's easier for us as individuals to envision the end of the world than it is for us to envision the end of capitalism.
Yes.
And the end of white supremacy.
Yes.
Because
and
what would it look like?
Tied together at this point, you know, like a sadness. This is one of the, I think it's really hard to equate this to people. You can't do it in text. It's really hard. And people have been trying to, there's been people greater than all of us who've been doing it since the 1800s, meaning Black people who understood the tragedy of our life in America is that no matter our talent, our history, our intellect, our desires, our dreams, we live a less than meaningful life because we have a system that does not consider our dreams. Mm. And you know, imagine when you then throw in all the legalities, adversity, and all the other stuff that we dealt with, that makes life really, really challenging. And I'm talking about for people who have degrees, mm-hmm, you know, people mm-hmm, who supposedly found their way in this capitalistic system. That's a terrible way to have to exist. But when you look at the American, I'm sorry, that's the heat. It's getting kind of cold.
Damn. That's aggressive.
You know, when you think about this American thing, though, white supremacy is so tied to the focus of everyone else instead of itself. So it doesn't have a proper reflection filter to even evolve past that. Mm. And that's the real tragedy of America. And I think what we saw last week is really the writing on the wall. And part of that is, unless we disrupt all of this stuff and create something better and new, the American thing is going to go one way. It's going to go out violently because that's the only language that makes sense to it.
And to your point earlier about cowboy culture, like this is the radical self-determination that America is built on is part of the thread that's tearing us apart now, because we cannot exist as a fucking species without collectivism going forward. I mean, individualism,
it's impossible.
Individualism has led us to the, peering over the edge of the cliff and looking down at a climate holocaust. Because
rugged, like rugged individualism too.
Yes.
And we've seen that Americans are almost, as you said, they're willing to let the shit burn before they actually think about building something better.
That's what they were doing at the Capitol.
Yeah.
That's what they were doing.
Still, listen, I've been fucking with a lot of U.S. attorneys who I have good relationships. We friendly. I don't think you could be friends with in my position, I don't know if I could be friends with a U.S. attorney. We just philosophically at two different places. But I've been fucking with them this week, like, yo, man. And some of them are like, they're really, because a lot of these guys believe in that rule of law. They don't see it as a mechanism for power. They don't see their law degree as providing them with a way to think critically about things. They see the law process as a doctrination to be about the rule of law. And these guys are messed up. Like, yo, a cop got murdered in the Capitol.
Yes.
In the law and order administration, listen, the fraternal order of police, who are, police have become this separate political labor force in America.
Terrifying.
Terrifying.
Absolutely horrifying.
They said nothing. Listen, Pat Lynch, what's the guy in Chicago, the head of the fraternal, the largest order? That's the biggest, you guys are, you're grifters in a way. Grifters off of emotion. That's the biggest thing to grift about. None of you had anything to say?
Because, and that's the thing too, that's so, the insidious part of it is that, the AFL-CIO allows for cop unions to be part of their, they're part of their collective. But that the idea that cops are workers, which they are not.
They're not.
They're not workers.
No. And to me, it just showed me a lot. Even I think me and you had spoke earlier in the week about this whole, I think NYPD just broke up two peaceful protests. I think one was laborers in the Bronx area, and another was Black Lives Matter protest.
In fact, I'm going to put that up on the screen right now because it was on. Can you the tone deafness of it is like remarkable to me. On Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
On his day, and Shay has the audacity to say or make the call of what he thinks was in the spirit of Dr. King and what wasn't. Here's one damn thing. I know Dr. King was not in the spirit of a police force.
No.
That when you look at its head, first of all, the New York City Police Department may be the most militarized local police force in America.
Definitely.
Like I can't think of maybe California, Los Angeles, and they're militarized like that by design. It was the war on drugs that pumped up their coffers. Mm-hmm. It was 9/11 that continued it. And they're militarized. Their leadership is still the old Irish core at the top. Yep. And they're one of the controlling factors of politics in New York. And that message and that narrative is, you guys need us to keep you safe and away from them scary Black and brown people.
Mm-hmm. We're literally looking at the headline here from NBC News, and this is what the police commissioner said. He literally said, "This is actions caused by people that want to destroy our way of life and our city, and we're not going to let it happen." That's like a hair away from the 14 words.
Yes.
That's like a hair away from the 14 words.
It is. And my thing is, what way of life are you discussing? What are you talking about? Who are you talking about?
Staten Island.
Yes. And Upper East Side.
Yes.
And some of these nice Upper West Side, Park Slope neighborhoods, good people in them.
Sure.
Some bad people in them.
Sure.
But collectively, a lot of those neighborhoods don't want my kids going to school.
Kids. They're the first ones to scream about school integration. That was the whole kerfuffle on the fucking Upper West Side.
Yes. So my thing is, you know what? Put all this shit under a microscope. Let's give me the data. Let's figure out the data. Let's see the results. We're the thinking people at. Let's get the blue collar intellectuals in here. Let's get the intellectuals who came from the Ivy League. Y'all want to work? Y'all come in here, and let's get those people who are actually living it in here. And listen, what's the goal? The goal is to change this for the better. Who's in? If you ain't in, get the fuck out. If you in, you gotta be held accountable. Let's execute. Let's think. Let's put it in play. Let's reflect. because without the reflection, you don't get the wisdom to know what you're really doing or if you're making sense. Mm-hmm. And we have to, because this is I hate thinking that in my lifetime things are really worse for my children, and they are in certain regards.
Ken, I hate to say it, but you know, and especially for probably our relatively young audience, you know, that's the case.
Yeah.
The reality
things
is
have gotten worse in my years here.
Yeah. Like, the reality is worse. Even if you just look at it on like a wage basis, the worker today is working 6 times harder for the same dollar as they were in the 1970s.
Yes.
You know, I can't, you know, talk enough about like, you know, generational warfare when it comes to like boomers versus millennials and zoomers and shit like that. But at the end of the day, it's extremely hard for them to accept that, because they have been they were like really the generation that was indoctrinated with the idea of American exceptionalism, and that like, hey, our way of life is the best. Things keep getting better. But the reality is, like, if you drive across the Manhattan Bridge, like one of the most important bridges in America, like it barely has fucking asphalt on it. Let alone like, you know, to be able to have a to count on the fact that your life for the life for your children is going to be better for you. I mean, many of my peers, and I am, you know, kind of mid to elder millennial, can't even afford to have children.
No,
fertility rate is way down.
And I feel like that generation they've been hustled into this thing. Yo, I'm an entrepreneur, the gig economy. That economy is just, what I found about capitalism is it always finds a way to exploit. Yes. And they're being exploited, because what you're not going to see, you know, my parents, they worked these jobs for years, and they had some sort of pension when they retired. Yeah. Those opportunities are going out the door.
But they don't exist.
That's not going to exist for many people. And when you start going to, you know, I think we were talking, I go to Colorado, I go to these Midwest places, to these prisons, and these places, they only exist because the Black and brown people are getting locked up. Like if they weren't getting locked up, they wouldn't have a local economy.
Ken, that is so fucked.
That's a wild. We have a wild.
So fucked.
And you know what? I was thinking about some shit the other day too. I was thinking about this shit, right? Democrats and Republicans both use Black and brown people in this whole political filter as crime. You know, we've all, you know, when we speak of crime, that's what we talk about, the American narrative, crime. So you get all this policy and legislation for crimes, right? And crime. But when you look at America, 2.5 million people are incarcerated. We're overrepresented for racist reasons, Black and brown people, but there's a shitload of white people in prison in America. And a lot of those people in prison, at least in the federal system, if you look at the map, they're in the middle of the country. And I was in AdMax the other day, and I was seeing all, you know, mostly a lot of white defendants. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, wow, how does America deal with that part of it? Like, is America even aware as a country that there's millions of white people in jail as well, and they're a part of this crime thing? Like, it's just a weird thing to me.
You would think it's an opportunity to wake up and radicalize even white people that even just kind of recognize their own race interests or something.
Yes.
And yet there's an array of propaganda that we hear all the time, which is like, you know, it's even like, you know, somebody stealing fucking baby formula, or like something simple from a grocery store. It's like, lock them up. It's like, you don't even fucking understand the implications of even entering that system for a crime of poverty.
For a crime of poverty. I've seen that. So now when I look and I wake up and I see I read the pardon list, and I was like, damn, of all the people to get a pardon in the Southern District is Steve Bannon. Someone who flamed the fire for this whole white supremacist thing to become mainstream. Because I think that's Trump's legacy, is that he made it chic and mainstream, and he put it so far into the forefront that, you know, it's created this this divide that we didn't want, that we kind of ignored. But Bannon was responsible for all that, and he gets a pardon. I represent people who come from generations of poverty sometimes. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about their stomach has been touching they were born into a world where their stomach was touching their back. Extreme trauma, socially, politically, economically alienated. And they're sitting in jail for selling 280 grams of crack or cocaine that the government, with a cooperator, through a cooperator in an undercover, didn't just go into that projects and buy 1, 2. They bought enough so that they had the B1A weight. Jesus and that Christ. Kid is sitting in jail for 10 years, 9 years. That's a crime of poverty. That's an economic crime. Yes. We forget that. And it just makes me, it boils my blood. It drives me why I do this work that I do. But until we destroy that kind of system, we just going to be going like this. We're going to think we're going in a straight line. Like people today woke up thinking, oh, wow, we got off of this Ferris wheel. We're not going in a circle anymore. Sometimes the circumference of the circle is so long, expansive, that straight line you think you're walking is just really that circle. And that's what we have to be careful of with this new administration and with these systems that we so willingly participate in that really destroys lives, and it makes it, so comfortable that we do nothing.
Let's not forget the impassioned, like the most passionate speech I think I've ever seen video of Joe Biden giving was in his defense of the 94 crime bill.
Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, like pounding on the lectern, like extremely impassioned to say, hey, I don't care if you gotta do whatever you gotta do to take them off the streets. You gotta take them off.
And listen, everybody was down with that.
Yes.
Those black politicians was down with it. The black pastors and churches were down with it. And I think that filter of race really clouds our ability to be critical at the most important periods in America. And I think in a way that's been America's history. America didn't get this way because it wanted to. It got this way because people were pushing, and many of these people died, black and white. You're yes. talking about, I love John Brown, but I love this Debs. Is it
Eugene V. Debs?
Eugene Debs.
Yeah.
Listen, you have people who really were courageous in this society, and a society that didn't reciprocate that courage. And until we get comfortable with knowing that this thing is not right and it has to, listen, not right doesn't mean doom. Not right means you need the right leadership. And I don't know if we're producing the leadership that will be necessary in changing this system. I don't know if we're doing that.
I mean, even if you looked at it on like an operationalization basis, I mean, how can somebody even have the time to be engaged in civic life at all, let alone to take a leadership position? I mean, this isn't strictly an accident that commute times have gotten longer, or that we travel to areas for our employment where it's capitally efficient rather than societally efficient, or that the trains work and public transportation works primarily to get us to and from work more than it is for us to just move about as we need to in our lives to live our lives and shit like that. Civic life was meant to be civic. Like, it was meant for you to participate and be like, you know what? I gotta run by that, wetlands meeting at the town hall before I get home, and honey, I'll be there shortly or whatever. Like, bring the kid and participate as a civic member of society. We cannot do that, let alone find like a new generation of leaders. It was an incredible fluke that, and like, this is why I think like the especially in New York City, the Democratic Socialists have been extremely the thing that they are best at right now isn't just strictly community organizing, stuff like that, but it's electoralism.
Electoral, yeah.
Because
they understand that
it requires an effort, a Herculean effort from a community to even get a single person in office, to even upend just like a nobody that's been in office for 45 years or something like that.
For you to get a judge out of seat in Brooklyn, it's like it takes a Herculean effort and a lot of money. But if you get the right ideology, you can change a lot of this with the right ideology and the right movement and optics. The thing is, it's going to take some time, but as you stated, what's really happening, you have an apparatus, a political apparatus and an economic apparatus that destroys any idea that it deems to be a threat. It destroys it.
Right.
I've seen it. I've seen it politically. I've seen it. I've seen things happen even in the courtroom that I know that's like, this is a sham. Yes. But I think through time, I think through information, I think we may get there. And unfortunately, I think the worse this thing gets or becomes, unfortunately, that's how we really get to test the good ideas and the people who are civic minded for something other than themselves, which, we don't have that at this point. There's no selfless leadership. We like to talk about all these leaders of the past. In reality, when those leaders were alive, those people that, gave their lives, society wasn't fucking with them.
Exactly.
They weren't.
Exactly.
And we have to be conscious of that to really live selflessly and really to do the things that are going to go towards change. You can't do it for props or recognition. You have to do it for the will of it, simply that it needs to get done.
On Monday, we read on the Twitch channel, we read the entirety of Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from a Birmingham jail.
Oh.
A bit of a tome, it turns out.
Yeah.
It took, I think, an hour and a half. But
America doesn't really know about that one, though. They don't know that one.
But what struck me is so funny about it is not only that, like, what he was explaining was like, it was a relatively simple ask. I think the original thing that they had started, the row that came from it was like literally just asking white merchants to take racist signs out of the store windows and shit. And even then, people and the point that he continued to inculcate throughout the entirety of the letter was like, this isn't even that much of an ask, and we're doing it in such a nonviolent way. We're doing it in such like an amiable way, and even that was met with so much headwind.
No, it's a good friend and a brother of mine the other day. He had made a comment. He text me. He's actually white. I love him. Stephen Lynch, one of the best people that I know on the planet.
Was he on that last Blurkin Combine episode?
Yes,
he's also
he was.
A lawyer. Yes.
Yes, defense. That's Steve. So
yes.
Steve grew up in Ohio. He's legal aid in Brooklyn before he went out on his own. And he texted me, and he just was like, he was so pissed that he watched the doc on King, and he was like, damn. He's like, yeah, these motherfuckers lucky King wasn't on some Mau shit. And I was like, listen, at the end, I was like, yo, look. It didn't matter. I was like, yes. And this is the beauty of and the intelligence and the courage of Dr. King. Like, he was courageous in ways that most of us can't even conceptualize. He was trying to tug on the moral strings of America.
Yes.
America doesn't have a conscience.
No. I thought about this the other day. I was like, America is morally bankrupt, but not. I don't mean that like as a rhetorical flourish. I mean like literally the moral debts that America has outweighs the amount of moral assets that it has.
Listen, Sandy Hook,
Jesus.
young, beautiful, blue-eyed, blonde, white kids get killed. Horrible.
Yes.
And you would think this would cause the nation to pause and say, you know what, this gun legislation, maybe we're doing something wrong here, guys. No. No.
And even scarier than that, like they said it was a false flag, that it didn't happen. It was a fucking hoax.
You got people yelling at these grieving parents to this day that they're actors, that it was fake. Mm-hmm. You have a society, it's labor force. We don't talk about what the corporations were doing to the laborers in this country. Yes. They were killing them.
Yes.
They were breaking up, busting unions. So bad that now we don't even have a union real force in this country anymore.
Correct.
Like this country uses a sledgehammer to kill an ant. They don't have a moral conscience. And King, though, he really, what was beautiful about him, and one of the things that was beautiful about him to me was that you could have disagreed with his strategies and his tactics, but the one thing, he was committed. And near the end of his life, he was a young man, all kinds of turmoil going on in his life. He really began to see this place for what it really was, beyond the dream. And I think at that point in his life, he didn't have any friends. The liberals were gone. They were pissed. He's talking about war and poverty and the government. He wasn't Johnson's favorite anymore. Black people started looking at him, some of us, like he was a troublemaker, but he still was committed to something. And we don't have much commitment in our lives. And I think that's one thing we all could take from someone like Dr. King, was his commitment to truth, and we don't have that.
I want to be cognizant of your time, and I kind of...
I'm cool. Listen, I just want to say,
yeah,
thank you, man. This is anytime you get to sit down with people and have thoughtful, critical thought without an agenda, that's a powerful moment. Yes. So I'm all for that shit. I also, I have a lot of conversations that I'd rather not take in sometimes. So it's cool to be a part of a conversation I'm okay with.
Look, I can't tell you enough how much, the honor is absolutely mine. And I think I'm reading the chat as we're going through this, and everybody is buzzing. In fact, Iceborer was even kind enough just now to link the Brooklyn Combine website.
Oh, wow.
So we're definitely feeling the love in the chat for you right now.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, certainly. And I think we've at least 4 times plugged.
And listen, and I'm gonna tell people, my goal is to put the necessity of me as a criminal defense attorney out of business. Like, and I have friends who look at me and they're like, yo, just, they want me to keep making money, make as much money as I can. Nah, there's other things to do. It's a tool to do something. If this thing goes right for me, crime goes down. Crime goes down because there's no longer a need to participate in that culturally, but there's no longer a need to do that for capitalist reasons. Until we remove the alienation from certain communities, there's always going to be some level of criminality.
Yes.
It always is. And that's an unfortunate reality. So my thing is, I think I've tapped in on at least the thought that can change that. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to do that as long as I can. I'd rather get you that way than having to walk you out of the courtroom. I could do both.
Yes.
But I'd rather not have to do the other one.
And as I failed to mention this earlier on, but I think I remember, and you posted a link for this the other day on Twitter, I think, but I think I remember learning about you initially, like when I first started listening to podcasts, which must have been like 2016, and I stumbled
Come back,
upon
Jack.
the Taxstone podcast,
Taxstone.
and
Yes.
and
I represent him in a murder
yes,
case and in a federal case. The pandemic has affected the trial. Obviously, there's no trials going on. We were scheduled to start trial last year when the pandemic hit. So yeah, I mean, I found Tax to be a really bright young man, and we knew of each other. I knew of him before he was podcasting, and he knew of my work. I represented people who he's close to, and somehow I got on the show, and like this conversation, it was a genuine conversation, and it had a lot of turns and twists to it. And for me as a human, I really feel, I think it's an unfortunate, tragic thing that I even have to represent him and just the reason why and what happened.
Right.
Yeah, that is funny because we had an episode about race and Trump and white supremacy.
Really?
I think that was my first or second episode. He brought me on 2 or 3 times, and it was Trump had just won, and he brought me on, and we had a discussion. I haven't listened to it since, but a lot of what we talked about actually happened.
Ice Borer in the chat actually just linked to it from SoundCloud from tax season.
I got to get that. I'm going to listen to that tomorrow when I'm writing this brief. I'm just curious.
God. It's just I remember too, like listening to it, and I was just like, I started getting into it. I think I heard like 2 or 3 episodes, and I'm like, oh man, he hasn't posted in a while. I should like Google this guy and see. And I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, I actually, it's funny you say that. I've only been on Twitter of late. I used to be heavy going on Instagram and Facebook, posting political stuff and talking, and things just got dark for me about 2 months ago.
Yes.
Really dark. I just, it was something going on personally about the world and my vision and my lens. And I stepped away, and I don't know if I'll ever indulge in Instagram or Facebook again, but it made me realize that you're human, and these things that, we're in a historic moment, and the things that are going around, there's been a lot of death. I know at least 25 people who have died from the coronavirus.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And during that time, I just lost 2 uncles actually in the last
I'm
month.
so sorry to hear that, Ken.
Month and a half,
so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm like kind of like my dad is an old school dude who migrated from Monroeville, Alabama to Brooklyn.
Wow.
He said, if you live long enough, you're going to die. So
well, that's true.
He died in his sleep. Wow.
It
makes me, it's something to be said about that one day. I'm going to think about that. But, so much death is around me. And then from what I do, the trauma that I see firsthand on a daily basis through the work that I do, from different angles, because people look at trauma as just that violence, but trauma reflects itself in so many different ways. And it really dawned on me, like, wow, I really want this world to be better, but it may not be better in my time. And that hit me. And it caused me to pull back a little bit. It caused me to observe more, talk less. And that's pretty much where I've been at. And having this conversation with you is really is helping figure some things out, I guess.
Look, this is what I was thinking about earlier on. I was like, what were the conditions that led us to even just literally all being here in this moment? We've got, I think, 54 people actively watching in the on the Twitch stream right now, and we're all participating in this conversation. If you 5 years ago, I had never thought that I was gonna. I mean, I wasn't even at all on social media. I'm still not. Under under my real.
I like how you move in social media, though.
Well, look, yeah, again, it's just like I try very much to. I think especially for us in the kind of community that we have here on Twitch, as well as the Eat the Rich folks, both on in our public episodes and then our Patreon episodes, is to kind of go a little bit deeper, because what I think what we've noticed is the scariest stuff are not the secrets. And even something, and I cannot fucking believe that this wasn't just like front page news in the Financial Times. I read something that bugged my eyes out of my fucking head the other day, which was the Glencore, which is one of the world's largest mining and minerals extractors, marketers and stuff, as you may know, and many of those in the chat know. Glencore sold Zambian copper mines back to Zambia for $1.5 billion.
Hey.
And even the headline also even went to say, I think it was on like Reuters, said cash strapped Zambia.
Yo.
And I was like, what fucking miscarriage of capitalism fucking made that happen?
Listen, history, IMF.
Yes.
Fucking Haiti, France.
Yes.
When emancipation, Lincoln and them, they don't give I don't know if it was Lincoln, was it Rutherford Hayes? Whatever. When emancipation happened, they gave money to the would-be slave owners who didn't get a chance to capitalize off of slavery.
Fuck!
That's the dastardly world that we live in. You know what I'm saying? Like, forget that some countries got together all from Europe and just carved up Africa like a fucking steak or pie.
Yes.
Forget all that. Let's go here. What's done is done now. This is all business. Listen. And now that explains why in a lot of countries that have been under American imperialism, they take on the role of their oppressor when they get an opportunity to get in charge.
Yes.
And that's, people are mimicking. Part of the reason why white supremacy have lived for so long is because people mimic and ape it.
Yeah.
People who aren't white mimic and ape it. And that's the problem of it, and that's a shame. But that's the kind of shit that goes on, like you said, that just lives in broad daylight and no one even thinks about it.
Yes.
That we want to believe that Elon Musk is some great fucking entrepreneur who was putting his cars together, like he's just a hardworking guy, that his fucking dad wasn't getting fucking diamonds out of mines off of the backs of dead Africans and shit. But we just live in a false narrative. The false narrative is at an all-time high.
Yes. Well,
we need more disruption.
The most kind of, I think, disturbing thing that came out of today, especially in the inauguration, and I watched pretty much the whole thing.
You did?
Yeah. I mean, what an idiot, firstly, to do that, but here I am. And I think what was really scary was, I think Biden said something in his speech about like, the world leaders or the world is looking at us and, we can say we're back or something to that effect. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
Like, whoa. We actually had an opportunity to like get away from that shit and reflect for a moment and think like, hey, maybe we can create a better iteration of this. No. And, and as we discussed on Eat the Rich as well, every empire was the strongest empire in the world right before it crumbled.
Before it fell. Absolutely.
And
this shit that's happening in this empire right now, this isn't just some story to gloss over. Like, this is not a story to gloss over. Listen, here's a danger. One of the dangers is when you have a fake tough guy, authoritarian like Trump in there who's not bright. What he's done is he was a test run for someone like a Tom Cotton.
Yes.
Or the Howley guy who's just going down in flames right now. On it, he can't get out of his own fucking way. But you open the door for that guy to sit like this, and what you do is you also, because Americans are the most programmed people out, you then have people beginning to look at the other monsters in a room, like Cheney and
Oh, Jesus.
who are some of these other fucking people?
Fucking Bush, for that
Well,
matter.
all these things. You have these guys now because this guy was so imbecilic, if that's even a word. Like if he's a moron, those people are now. You can deal with them. You can live with them. Yes. And when you have a society that doesn't check itself, but's always looking for the spin and the false narrative, never dealing what it created, this shit is gonna get a lot worse.
Right.
We have no idea where. So my thinking is like you. Listen, you guys have the power from the presidency, legislatively. You got it all. Yo, let's see what you about.
Yes.
Let's see what you about.
And we don't have much time.
Questions. We don't have time. Nope. Let's see it.
By the middle of next month, like 4 weeks from now, it's super possible that 100,000 Americans might additionally be dead.
Dead. 500,000 people.
Easily. And the fact that the Biden administration didn't come out, even just like this, I thought about this the other day. You can't get a fucking therapy appointment if you tried. Why? Because it costs $300,000 to become a psychologist, and you're too much in demand. Like the demand way outweighs the supply, and we're suffering as a country from these diseases of despair that are killing us, literally. Even not to mention like all the other collateral damage of health issues that we're getting from being cooped up inside or relying on. We
don't even know yet. Like the next the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to really get to see how this has affected our health and our citizens.
Even just like one of my favorite statistics that I try to cite wherever possible is this was a study done by Lancet in the UK, which was the 2008 financial crisis led to an additional 500,000 cancer deaths, not because they didn't, there wasn't treatment available, but because they lost their health insurance, and that was worldwide. It, however, excluded, not that it excluded, but there were no more additional cancer deaths in countries that had universal health care coverage.
That's crazy.
Oh, I mean, so in any kind of, when you have it as a market-based solution, markets allocate resources to those who can pay the most for them. So of course, something like COVID, black people are going to die 4 to 5 times more than a white person in America.
You know what I realized though is they're disseminating that virus like they're in the drug business. Like it's like, who do you know? Like there's no centralized control. It's almost like they just contracted the shit out and never followed up, and they didn't provide the product in the level that they said they would. So you have, like, I think we would be lucky if only 500,000 people
100%.
died. It's fucked up, but I had told people that I actually thought before this shit is all said and done, somewhere between 500,000 to 1 million Americans can be dead.
Totally agree.
That's what we know about. We also don't know the statistics and the data. Like I don't think under the prior administration you can actually even trust what we were seeing.
He literally told hospitals to stop sending their information to the CDC and rather send it to a political organization within the executive branch.
As he said, and in the same tone, he's telling the American public that doctors are lying about the deaths. Like they're falsifying because they could get money if they lie.
I mean,
that's
to your point. Imagine if there was a deft fascist in power.
Yeah. Listen, and I think there's going to happen. The next Republican who gets that office, in my opinion, is going to be a hybrid that can get the Republican, that real traditional Republican money and source, and can be appealing to the oath seekers.
Yes.
And I think there's someone out there, there's probably some guys out there who can satisfy that. and that it will be the next, Republican candidate, in my opinion, who will win. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Or a Republican candidate that will harness QAnon.
Mm-hmm. Look, it is not going to take much. Shit, you got people in Congress who are, somebody sent me a article from the Times, and they said QAnon are having a challenge dealing with the reality of the inauguration. I was like, no, they're having challenge dealing with reality, period. Yes. But even that is based in this really complex history of race and ignorance in this country. That, like, when you look at some of those conspiracies and you follow it, it's like, get it. And, misinformation is valuable. is very valuable. And I think we're in the age of misinformation.
I think, as we look towards the remediation of the pandemic, I think the kind of mainline centrist liberals are looking to facts and reason to kind of reason our way out of this. For instance, people that are, I think, rightfully trepidatious about taking the vaccine, because they see, I mean, I'm taking it, that's fine. But, for the people that, for the people that have watched the erosion of our public institutions that are meant to safeguard us, it's understandable. However, the mainline kind of Democrats and liberals and the large kind of media institutions are still just saying, well, if you don't, you're just ignorant if you don't, think that science, you have to listen to science and stuff. But we are, whether they like it or not, we are in an ideological battle. And
definitely,
unfortunately, Democrats don't have a large ideological project like conservatives do.
No, they don't. Their thing is just inclusivity, false inclusivity.
Yeah. Yes. And I think until we, unify that battle of, the triumph of the working class over the ruling class and the unity around anti-racism and anti-fascism, then
I think the Democratic, but I think the Republican parties, we're watching it splinter.
Maybe now, yeah.
Because listen, when you're so stiff, you eventually break. When you're not malleable, you break. The Democratic Party, I think, is going to go through that as well. It may be a slower process, but depending on certain world events or phenomenons, it may not. And the reason why I say that is, I hate when you hear politicians and you see these stories and you see these dumb fucks on television talking about the radical left. There is no radical left in American politics. That's why we're
not in mainstream politics. Not even close.
It's not even close. Now, listen, you have 4 women who've been identified with a few other guys who are all new. I guess the Bowman guy and a few others, right?
Yep.
But time will tell if their ideology actually translates into legislation.
Yes.
And changing. And the reason why time has to tell is because they have put themselves out that they've identified that system. You can say what you want about these young women, but they're really bright, in my opinion. Like, they get it. They understand 100%. Some of these issues, right? And this system is like, fuck you. All right. Yes. But this system is going to find a way to make them marketable and take advantage of whatever they're dealing with. That capitalism does that. Capitalism absorbs everything and turns it out. But if they're able, or if as a result of what they're saying ends up in the street with people actually changing their day-to-day with practical solutions, then I think the Democratic Party is going to have an issue to deal with. Mm-hmm. I don't know their inner politics or their connections to see how likely that is, because that requires activism. That's way beyond tweeting some shit that,
Correct.
that makes you in the know. But if they can figure that part out, and they can, and you have people who are actually going into these communities where people are suffering and identifying the suffering, and then correcting it, and then holding these corporations who are there accountable and these local politicians accountable, then I think the Democratic Party begins to change a bit. But I don't know. I don't know if I don't know. I'm not a politician. So.
Not yet. Well, if the chat had anything to do about
listen,
it.
I have. Look, Ken Thompson was a great friend of mine. That's the one race that I became involved with as a defense attorney. Mm. And his successor was someone who I came through the ranks with, and someone's like a brother to me, Eric Gonzalez. Like we're on the opposite sides of the spectrum. But I did think that it was important to have people who I thought could be held accountable in those positions. And I'm not one of those people. I'm totally on the opposite. I'm not one of those fucking people who think the criminal justice reform should come from the fucking prosecutor's office. You're fucking crazy if you think that. Like, they're not civil rights activists.
Exactly.
They lock fucking black and brown people up. That's why they're where they at.
Yes.
And it's not, listen, I can compartmentalize and figure it out. But they're not civil rights activists. But when you have people in that position, like Ken was and like Eric is now, who are receptive and understand that, it ain't just, this crime just doesn't exist in a vacuum. I think that's important. But yes. I'm not into politics, though.
Ken, in interest of time, I think we should wrap ourselves up here.
Listen, you ever need anything? You have all my information. I'd love to do this again. I'd love to bring you on the Brooklyn Combine.
Oh, that's very kind.
No, I think you would be a very interesting conversation about a lot. And I really appreciate this time.
Thank you. I mean, for those, Ice Borer in our chat here has been very kind to link your Twitter account.
No, Ice Borer, peace.
Yeah. I think everybody is in the chat. I very much implore you to follow Ken on Twitter, and as well as the Brooklyn Combine as well, because again, I can't express enough what a big fan I am, and I'm very grateful for you for taking the time with us tonight, especially to share this conversation with everybody that's joined us in the chat. And when we wrap, Ken, if you wouldn't mind just holding on for 1 second, I just want to chat with you quick. I'd appreciate that.
I am.
So to everybody else in the chat, I guess we'll see each other on Twitter in like half an hour probably, because how else are we going to digest this fucking day? Anyway, Ken, thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Thank you. I appreciate it.